Good morning. We'll start session 4 on chapter carbon and its compounds. And this is the last session of this chapter. So, we'll move on to the chemical properties of carbon compounds. Till now we have understood about the functional group, what are hydrocarbons, its different form, that is alkene and alkyne with respect to single, double and triple bond. We also understood about the structural isomerism. We understood about how to represent that in a straight structure as well as an electron dot structure. Then what are functional group, how we attach those different functional groups to the given hydrocarbons. The next is chemical properties of carbon compounds. Rather, I can also tell this as important functions, or we can say the chemical reactions with respect to carbon compounds. Basically, all carbon compounds are termed as a very good fuel because they burn efficiently by producing enormous amount of heat and light. For example, LPG, what we use at home, that is methane, isobutane, or these are the different forms of carbon compounds what we use them as a fuel. So let's understand its chemical property, what we study here in 4 different parts, that is combustion, oxidation, addition and substitution. Now the name itself will suggest combustion, something which is burnt in the presence of air, and oxidation reaction, that is addition of oxygen. Yes, it is the same reaction what we have studied in the first chapter, chemical reaction, but a bit in a different form it is represented. Oxidation is something where we add oxygen, but with respect to a hydrocarbon we will learn that. Addition reaction is something when hydrogen is added, that is called as an addition reaction. Substitution reaction, for a given hydrocarbon, if I substitute it with some other element, what is the final product obtained, that we understand in substitution reaction. So let's understand the carbon chemical properties of carbon compounds in detail. As the name tells, combustion, so anything which is burnt, anything in the sense, a hydrocarbon which is burnt in the presence of air is called as a combustion. For example, if I take a methane and burn that in the presence of oxygen, what are the byproducts obtained? Carbon dioxide, water, heat and light with respect to a balanced equation. Why methane? I can also choose ethane, I can choose propane, I can choose butane, but whatever hydrocarbon is chosen with respect to burning that in presence of oxygen, the reaction has to be balanced with respect to carbon and hydrogen atoms used here, right? Best example you can go for methane, as it is the same thing given in the book also, and we also represent the same example. So basically when we talk about combustion, there are 2 types of combustion: complete combustion, incomplete combustion. You have studied the gist of the complete and incomplete combustion in your standard 8 as well in the chapter combustion and flame, what you had there, right? That means you understood what is combustion, you understood what is the meaning of a flame. So before I move on to a complete and incomplete combustion, let us talk about a flame. So basically we have 2 types of flame: sooty flame and a non-sooty flame. Now what do you mean by a sooty and a non-sooty flame? Now basically in a sooty flame you cannot, let us take an example, cooking food. In a sooty flame you cannot cook the food properly, and in a non-sooty flame you can cook the food properly. Now if I on the gas burner and if I have a candle, okay, can I cook the food with respect to candle and with respect to gas burner? Of course, gas burner I can cook the food over there, over LPG. But a candle I cannot cook food, though it will produce heat, right? Second thing is, the vessel what I keep over the gas burner, when I take it out, it does not have any black mark which is called as a sooty mark or sooty flame, right? But the vessel which I keep over the candle will have a sooty mark there, that is a sooty flame there. Why is this? Because, and have you noticed the color? The LPG when it is burnt, it gives a blue color. Both are flame, even that is a type of a flame only. But here candle will have orangish yellow color flame. You already know the 3 zones of flame there, we did not discuss about that. So this tells us that when a substance or when a flame which undergoes a complete combustion, it has a non-sooty flame, and if it undergoes an incomplete combustion, it will have a sooty flame. For example, your LPG itself, you have a gas burner at home, it has many pores in them, right? Well cleaned, fully filled LPG will always give you a non-sooty blue color flame, right? That is, the vessel will not turn black. If you touch that black color thing, you can't touch. That is called as a sooty flame. Then, if in case the pores are filled with some oil, by oils, sometimes oil spills or water, not exactly water, dust or anything, if it goes inside that, it will not have a proper space for combustion because it will block the oxygen. So that undergoes a incomplete combustion. During that incomplete combustion, it burns with a non-sooty flame. That means you have to clean the pores, right? Otherwise also, if you have observed children, sometimes when your LPG is over, the flame what it comes over there also is a orangish, but that does not exactly give non-sooty. So the meaning what we understood about combustion here, one is complete and incomplete combustion. In that we understood about flame, that is sooty flame and non-sooty flame. So generally when we talk about a hydrocarbon, all saturated hydrocarbon generally burn in air with a blue and non-sooty flame. I had to give you an example for a LPG and a candle because to make you realize the color of the flame and make you understand what is sooty and non-sooty flame. All unsaturated hydrocarbons burns in air with a yellow sooty flame because percentage of carbon is high. Now what does this mean? Let's understand. I will take an example for ethane. Why ethane? Because I need to give an example for saturated hydrocarbon and unsaturated. Methane, if I choose, unsaturated methane does not exist because unsaturated is a double bond or triple bond. Saturated is a single bond. So ethane formula is C2. So 2 2s are 4, 4 plus 2 is 6. Here let us take an example for ethene. Ethene example is C2H4 and ethyne example is C2H2. Now let us compare the carbon atoms with respect to hydrogen atoms here. In ethane with respect to 6 hydrogen atoms, I have only 2 carbon atoms. Fine. Less number of carbon atoms I can tell. Why? Because hydrogen atoms are more. With respect to hydrogen, if I compare, carbon atoms are less, right? Ethene when I talk about, yes of course even here C2 is there, here also C2. Everywhere we have 2 carbon atoms only. But when we compare that with hydrogen, hydrogen is 4 and carbon is 2. That means it is 50, almost ratio is not exactly half, little bit difference we have here. Look here, ethyne. We have hydrogen 2 and carbon 2, exactly half. This is half and this is half. At least 75% we have here, we have 50% here. So when we compare that with hydrogen, children, don't you feel that carbon content is more in unsaturated than in saturated? That means if carbon content is more, that means it will undergo incomplete combustion which produces a sooty flame, I can tell here as. So when a carbon content is less, it undergoes a complete combustion which will burn with a non-sooty flame. The color of a non-sooty flame is blue and the color of the sooty flame is yellow. So basically when we talk about a combustion, hydrocarbon burnt in the presence of air which undergoes a complete combustion gives carbon dioxide water with enormous amount of heat and light. Used as a fuels because it is all hydrocarbons are termed as a very good fuel. They are very efficient fuel because it gives enormous amount of heat and light. Saturated hydrocarbon generally burns in air with a blue and non-sooty flame, undergoes a complete combustion. Unsaturated hydrocarbon burns in air with a yellow sooty flame. Why? Because percentage of carbon is high. It can be also asked as a give reason question. We'll move on next to oxidation. We already know that oxidation is something known as addition of oxygen, right? And removal of hydrogen. That is what we have studied in the first chapter. Let's understand this concept here with respect to a hydrocarbon. Alcohol can be converted into carboxylic acid. Now how this can be converted? In the presence of an oxidizing agent like alkaline potassium permanganate, alkaline is basic, and acidic potassium dichromate. So these two are oxidizing agents. Either of this we can use, either alkaline we can use or acidic we can use. That has to be mentioned. This has to be mentioned acidic and this has to be mentioned basic, that is alkaline. Why alkaline? Water soluble. See, basic I can mention, but main alkaline is mentioned because it is a water soluble. So how is the reaction goes here? CH3 CH2OH. What is this? Ethanol. So how do you remember this, children? Now we already know. I did not tell you how did I arrive at this. At least by this video when you watch, you know how to represent a hydrocarbon in functional group in this form. This can also be represented as C2H5OH, correct? That also is right. I can write this as C2H5OH. This is also the correct way of writing. Up to you. Ethanol can be converted to carboxylic acid. Carboxylic acid is what here? Which carboxylic acid? Ethanoic acid. Ethanol can be converted to ethanoic acid where in the presence of alkaline potassium permanganate or acidic potassium dichromate, which acts as an oxidizing agent. Now see here, it acts as an oxidizing agent. Addition of oxygen, what you can see over here is the same thing has happened here. See, nothing. You need not really sit and see. This reaction will not ask you under oxidation reaction. But what? How is the question asked here? They will not ask you what is oxidation reaction. If they ask you what are you supposed to write, your old answer only. Here in this part, the question is asked as how ethanol can be converted to ethanoic acid. Understood? If they ask you define oxidation, you are supposed to write your oxidation answer in this one. Which one, children? Chemical reaction and equation. Here in this part, the question is asked in the form of how ethanol is converted to ethanoic acid. A very important question where you can just answer this in this form, and the process of conversion from a ethanol to a ethanoic acid under the presence of an oxidizing agent is called as oxidation with respect to hydrocarbon. So we understood combustion, we understood oxidation. Now let us understand addition reaction where we add hydrogen, and substitution reaction where we substitute a component from a hydrocarbon. So the next is addition reaction. As we discussed, it is something addition of hydrogen. That is, in an unsaturated hydrocarbon, if I add hydrogen under the presence of some catalyst as a nickel, we get a saturated hydrocarbon. So basically a definition of an addition reaction is when a conversion of an unsaturated hydrocarbon to a saturated hydrocarbon by addition of hydrogen is called as a addition reaction. That's the basic definition, right? Actually what happens here is, this is an unsaturated hydrocarbon that is with a double bond. So this R, that is nothing but you can link number of carbon atoms there and extend the chain. With addition of hydrogen to it under the action or under the presence of a nickel as a catalyst, nickel or palladium as a catalyst. Now what is a catalyst? We all know that catalyst is a substance which itself will not take part in the chemical reaction, but it will speed the action or speed the reactions of the things which is happening in the chemical reaction. That means it will make the reactants react faster to give the better result, faster result, to produce a good result, but without itself taking part in the chemical reaction. That is called as a catalyst. So there we get converted that to saturated hydrocarbon. So basically when we talk about the oil what we use at our home, cooking oil. Basically when we talk, children, cooking oil is the best example for unsaturated hydrocarbon. So on addition of hydrogen to it, on heating further, on addition of hydrogen, that cooking oil, that vegetable oil what we use for cooking is converted to further vegetable ghee. Not exactly ghee, it is called as a vegetable ghee or a vanaspati dalda. That is something called as a saturated hydrocarbon. Basically, why is this conversion done? Because for the preservation. Oil cannot be preserved for a longer period of time. The shelf life of the oil is very less. So the shelf life of the vegetable ghee is quite long. Now basically when we see the food items prepared out of oil can spoil easily, but the food prepared from food or any oily stuffs prepared from vegetable ghee, dalda or vanaspati stays for a quite lot time because the shelf life is more, but it is also in other way harmful to our health, right? We do not prefer, do we everyday use vegetable ghee? See, I am not talking about the ghee, normal ghee what we all consume. This is something called as a vegetable ghee, vanaspati or dalda what we call, right? Which looks like a almost ghee but that is not a ghee, it is a substitute what we use. That is prepared with respect to oil, heating it in the addition of hydrogen. That means the shelf life of this is more than the shelf life of this. But basically we all eat unsaturated cooking oil at home. We use unsaturated oil at home. We do not use saturated. Saturated is usually used in, you can say in the hotels or in the bakery. It might be in the hotels, bakery or for the food condiments what we use, because to increase the shelf life of the food, it is generally used. So addition reaction is conversion of an unsaturated hydrocarbon to a saturated hydrocarbon in the presence of nickel as a catalyst by adding hydrogen to it is called as a addition reaction. And the last one, substitution reaction. The reaction in which a reagent substitutes an atom or a group of atoms from the reactant are called substitution reaction. Now for example, we have a hydrocarbon methane. And for this hydrocarbon methane, we add chlorine. So just simple example if I have to show you here is, so this is a methane CH4, right? Now we add chlorine to this under the presence of sunlight. So when we add chlorine to this, actually what you get, I'll replace here only and show it to you. So I'll get CH3Cl. Chlorine is a functional group, it belongs to a halogen group. This is also read as methyl chloride, or in the other way, how do we read this? We read this as chloromethane. This is chloromethane, right? And HCl gas is produced. Again, further, for this part, again one more hydrogen is replaced and we add a chlorine to it. For CH3Cl, another chlorine molecule is added. So what do you get? CH2Cl. For this CH2Cl, till when we have to go on adding? We have to go on adding until we substitute, until chlorine will substitute all the hydrogen atom. Till then you have to go on adding that. So one more Cl I will substitute here. So I will get CHCl3. One more hydrogen atom is there. Further, when for this, again if I add another chlorine atom under the presence of sunlight, what do I get? I get CCl4. What is CCl4? Carbon tetrachloride. So with the help in substitution reaction, carbon tetrachloride is obtained. This is called as substitution reaction. A very important question. What is substitution reaction? That's all is asked and you have to present this. You need not show that. This is more than enough and you have to write this sunlight, because just to go the reaction will not happen if it is not taking place in the presence of sunlight in a particular temperature. So there we complete the first part, that is chemical properties of carbon compounds. Next we understand some more properties, that is chemical properties of ethanol and ethanoic acid. How do they react with say base or an alkali? What are the reactions formed? What are the reactants formed? We'll understand that. So let's understand some chemical properties of ethanol and ethanoic acid, and we'll also understand their properties and uses later. So when we talk about the chemical properties of ethanol, reaction with sodium. So what happens when an ethanol reacts with sodium? We only have to remember the reactions and what are their byproducts. So ethanol reacts with sodium to give a sodium salt, that is sodium ethoxide, and hydrogen gas is released. And how do you check the presence of hydrogen here? It's again the POC test. Ethanoic acid, or we know it as by a common name called as acetic acid, or also by a vinegar. Ethanoic acid reacts with sodium to form sodium acetate, again a sodium salt. Ethanoic acid further reacts with the sodium hydroxide, that is base. It reacts with the base to give salt and water. So acid reacting with base, what do we get? Acid plus base will give us salt and water. The same reaction will give us sodium ethonate, which is nothing but a sodium salt and water. Furthermore reaction, if you want to understand with the balanced one, ethanoic acid reacts with sodium carbonate and sodium hydrogen carbonate. So when it reacts with sodium carbonate and sodium hydrogen carbonate, it also will give the same salt, that is sodium ethonate plus water. Since it is reacting with carbonate and hydrogen carbonate, carbon dioxide gas is also released. These reactions are given in the book. So the first reaction is with base, gives salt and water. Second reaction is with sodium carbonate, which will give again sodium ethonate plus water plus carbon dioxide. Sodium hydrogen carbonate, when it reacts, again a salt, sodium ethonate plus water plus carbon dioxide gas is released. So now we know what happens when an acetic acid, vinegar or ethanoic acid reacts with a metal, a base, metal carbonate and a metal hydrogen carbonate. Next we go with when ethanoic acid reacts with ethanol, that is ethanoic acid reacts with the ethanol. The first one what we checked, we get a ester. Ester is nothing but a fruity smell product, that is a product, a byproduct what we get which has a sweet fruity smell. Sometimes the perfumes or what you can say that will have a particular fruity kind of a smell, a very good smell, that is called as a ester. So when ethanoic acid reacts with ethanol, it produces ester, a fruity smell, and the process when this will take place, that particular process is called as esterification. A very important question. What is esterification? Simple, you have to just explain the reaction. And when the same ester further reacts with the base, that is sodium hydroxide, it will again form some sodium salt, that is sodium ethonate, and ethanol alcohol, that is ethanol is produced. When this ester reacts with the sodium hydroxide, it produces sodium ethonate and ethanol is produced, and this process is called as saponification, the process which is used in the manufacturing of a soap. So from esterification what we obtain, that is ester what we obtain, that ester further if it is reacted with the base, we get a sodium ethonate and ethanol. The product, the process which it takes place is called as saponification, another very important process as esterification what we discussed, and this is used in the manufacturing of soap. So we also understand how is soap different from detergent, but before that, what we have understood about ethanol and ethanoic acid, let us understand some properties of ethanol and ethanoic acid as well as uses of ethanol and ethanoic acid. So some properties and uses of ethanol and ethanoic acid. Physical properties of ethanol. So it's a colorless, pleasant smell, and it's a colorless liquid basically what we can sell, which has a pleasant smell but it has a burning taste. Soluble in water, volatile liquid with a low boiling point, and it's a neutral compound. Nothing much what I can just discuss on this. If any physical properties are asked, you can just jot down as per the marks. Uses. It is used as an antifreezer in the automobile radiators. It is used for preserving the biological specimen. So what specimens you have in your school laboratory, the liquid what is there in that is nothing but a ethanol. Used as an antiseptic to sterile wounds in hospital, solvent for drugs, oil, fat, perfumes, etc. Your sanitizers as well. It is also used a content, a part of a percent of that in a cough and digestive syrups. Physical properties of ethanoic acid, that is acetic acid. It's a colorless liquid having a sour taste. We know how vinegar tastes like. Having the smell of vinegar. Having the smell of vinegar is it is used in the preparation of vinegar itself. When pure acetic acid is freezed, it forms a colorless ice-like solid. So it is also called as a glacial acetic acid. A very important question for give reason. Why is ethanoic acid called as an acetic acid? You can give this reason. That's all in the properties. Uses. It is the first main use is it is used in the preparation of vinegar. It is also used as a reagent in the laboratory for coagulation of rubber from latex and in the preparation of dyes, perfumes and medicine. So these are the few basic simple uses of ethanol and ethanoic acid, as well the properties of ethanol and ethanoic acid. The last part of this chapter is about soap and detergent. How is soap different from detergent and how is it manufactured? We'll just understand that briefly. Soaps and detergent, the last part in carbon and its compounds. So soap is what you can say how it is defined or what is called as, it is a sodium or potassium salt of long chain carboxylic acid, basically C17H35COONA, the formula what we call for a soap. Effective only in soft water. Yes, it is only effective in soft water because have you seen a soap, if you want to wash your hands, when you have a soap and a soft water, it gives you a good lather, right? But in the same case, if you have a hard water and when you try to wash your hands with that, it gives you less lather with the hard water. That's because hard water has many salts dissolved in it. So with that respect, detergents play a very good role with respect to soap when compared to soft water or hard water what we are using. Detergents are ammonium or sulfonate salt of long chain carboxylic acid, effective in both hard and soft water. But soap is effective only with respect to soft water. Let's understand now the cleansing action of soap. Now the manufacturing of soap is something which is called as saponification. That's all what we understand. We just did that in the previous part. So cleansing action of a soap. Soap molecule consists of two ends or the two basic parts what we tell here is. One is the ionic part and another is the long hydrocarbon chain part. The ionic part is called as a hydrophilic end and the long hydrocarbon chain part is called as a hydrophobic end. So if I just talk about this is the soap molecule, this end is called as a hydrophilic end. The long tail-like structure is called as a hydrophobic end. So what actually happens here is most of the dirt or the grease or the dirt things what we have on the clothes which we have to clean are oily in nature. That means it is insoluble in water. So in other words we can tell that most of the dirt and grease are insoluble in nature because it is oily. Most of the dirt is oily in nature, hence they are insoluble. And what actually happens there is the hydrophobic end, that is the long end, attaches itself with the dirt and the ionic end is this end, surrounds it with the water. Now basically if you have to understand this is whatever is a dirt, a soap molecule when we apply that on that, the dirt what is there, this particular end that is hydrophobic end attaches to it and on the surface what we have that is nothing but a hydrophilic end. Difficult to understand children but still practically if you have to imagine that if you see any advertisement of how the cleansing action of a soap works on a particular clothes or how the dirt is actually removed, you see that in that. So just imagine that to be a dirt which is attached to a hydrophobic end and the topmost part is the hydrophilic end. I repeat that. The hydrophobic end attaches itself with the dirt and the ionic end that is this surrounded with the water molecule. This results in the formation of the radial structure called micelles. A very important, what are micelles? If it is asked, you can explain this. or few more points I have also mentioned in the notes. You can as well go through that. Which will help, micells will help to dissolve dirt and grease. So main thing is, it is when the soap is applied on the dirt, on the grease, we understand that which end will get it attached to dirt and the other part, which gives the formation of a radial structure. Figure also is mentioned, that is called as a micelle, which help to dissolve dirt and grease. But the one important thing what we have to understand here is, if it is a hard water or soft water, how it is differentiated. The magnesium and the calcium salt present in the hard water react with the soap. Of course, if it is a hard water, whatever are the salt present in the water will first react with the soap molecule to form insoluble product called scum. What is scum? That's also a very important definition. But this creates difficulty in cleansing action. Why it creates difficulty in cleansing action? Because it is insoluble because of the hard water. That means with the soap we cannot clean the clothes clearly, or the dirt or the grease cannot be removed because it becomes insoluble particle which cannot dissolve. So the best part, soap will not have any action on that. Instead of that, what we can do? We can use a detergent. Why? Detergent is effective both in hard and soft water. So, use of detergent makes it insoluble scum which is not formed. That means what is formed is insoluble there, that will not result if in case you use the detergent. Now basically what question is expected here? The question expected here is, how are soap different from detergent? Question number 1. Explain the cleansing action of a soap. Question number 2. What are micelles? You can explain that with a figure as well, which is also given in the book. And what is scum? These are the few basic questions which are actually asked from the last part of the carbon and its compounds. So, cleansing action is this what you have to explain. In this only we have what are micelles and scum. So, how are soaps different from detergent? We only have few points to understand and explain them. So, children, with this we complete the chapter carbon and its compounds, where we understood what are the different carbon compounds, what are hydrocarbons, its double, single and triple bond, structural isomerism, what are functional groups, then some chemical properties of carbon compounds as well, and also how is soap different from detergent, and what is the cleansing action of a soap, how do we clean the dirt and grease, how do we remove the dirt and grease from the clothes, we understood in the last part. So with this we complete the chapter carbon and its compounds, and as well we complete the science syllabus for the academic year.